Kim Corsair. This is my infrastructure submission. The infrastructure that I wanted to explore was Instagram. I have a bit of a love-hate relationship with Instagram, and I always think that I'm using Instagram as a way to keep in touch with people, and keep up with my friends. But in reality, I think Instagram sells us as a kind of commodity. And we end up comparing ourselves to other people and doom scrolling. There are positives and negatives to everything, but this is an investigation into a different way that we could use apps like Instagram, and kind of experiment with the interface of it. So I started by researching a little bit of the history of Instagram. I watched the Instagram Effect, which is a hour-long documentary on BBC iPlayer, which it interviews a lot of whistleblowers and documents the life of young people affected by Instagram and its algorithms. The big points in Instagram, obviously, in the early days of Instagram, is the official release date, which was October 2010. It was then bought out by Facebook for $1 billion in April 2012, so less than 2 years later. And this was the biggest, the most amount of money that an app had been bought for. And then in November 2013, the first sponsored post advertising happened. And I think this is important to know in Instagram's history. This is when they start to make a lot of money from advertising, and then soon we see how paid advertising actually happens from the users, such as influencers, and I think this starts to taint the effect of Instagram as not sharing posts, but it's actually selling things to you, and it's not just obvious advertising, it's also through the users. And in 2016 you see a change from the chronological feed. So that was everyone that you followed, and it was the latest post would be at the top of the feed, and then it changed to algorithms. So Mozia is one of the executives of Instagram, and also worked with Facebook, and there's a video on his Instagram explaining how the algorithms work of different parts of the stories. This is aimed towards people that are trying to get their stories and their posts higher up on the ranking, but it's also interesting to look at from a algorithmic point of view. Yeah, so this is the Instagram Effect, which is a well-known documentary that really opens the eyes, but doesn't sell Instagram as a lost cause. They say that there's lots of ways that it could be improved, and they have a rose-tinted view of the very early days of Instagram. Another artist is Richard Prince. We look at him a lot in photography because he takes screen grabs of people's Instagrams and then prints them on canvases and sells them for way more money, and often didn't ask for consent. There's lots of copyright issues within this. So while I was coming up with this idea, I had that in mind, that this question of how much do you need to change of an image before it becomes your own. So the idea was to change the interface of Instagram, so I'd be receiving updates without interacting with the app, which reduces screen time and distractions. There'll be no advertising or use of algorithms. It will be back to chronological order, and hopefully this will encourage people to look at single posts for longer, because I'll reduce the amount of information that's going through. It questions the format and the interface of the image and of Instagram as an app. But also keeping in mind, like, what point is copying someone's image becomes stealing, which is often looked through the John Burge's book, The Ways of Seeing, as well. So this was the idea that I had, that I would link up a receipt printer so that I could choose the post that I wanted to be printed through, and I wanted to work out a way that this could happen in real time as well. I chose to use Kim Kardashian as the Instagram profile because she posts quite regularly, but also because she has books about taking selfies, and she's kind of like the pioneer of using Instagram and really selling this image. I think she's a good example to use. I also wanted to include some of her kind of branding, almost as if I'm taking inspiration from her pictures, I want to create the fabrication in her style as well. So this is the workflow. These are the kind of ideas that I needed. So I needed to work out how to code this in the first place, which meant using a scraper and a cron job, and then I needed to convert the image into ASCII so that I could print it on the printer, and I also needed to work out how to use the printer. And with all of these things, I've realised that I needed to use a Raspberry Pi so that I could have updates going on in the background, but that also meant that I had to use Python, which I don't have much experience in. So I started by using command line. I found Instagram load on GitHub, which is a very easy way to just download all of the Instagram posts and all the geodata from that each Instagram post using command line. It was very easy to use, but Kim Kardashian has a lot of posts, so I quit the function before it clogged up my laptop. And then, so I wanted to use a Raspberry Pi, but I was struggling with the Python. So I used an Arduino instead, just to get some test prints. Connecting the Arduino, I had to use a jack adapter into the mains. I really struggled with this. I think I left it a little bit too late, but also my jack adapter wasn't working very well, so the power would flick on and off. As you can see, it started printing the self-test, but didn't finish it, and it also started printing something that I didn't ask it to print. But I knew that I would need to turn the images into ASCII instead, so I started doing that. I did quite a lot of research into the ASCII art. I tried to use it through Terminal, but I struggled. I also tried to use ASCII Magic in Python, but I think the environment was wrong. I was just really struggling with Python. But I did a bit of research on the coding train, and also there are text-to-image converters using ASCII online. So that's how I got this picture of Kim Kardashian in the top right hand corner. I also researched cron jobs, but I was really struggling with Python. I think if I had a little bit more time, I might have been able to work it out, but I was getting really stuck. But I worked out what the line would have to be in, how I'd put it in, but I didn't actually get to the point where I could put it into the Raspberry Pi. But this would check every 10 minutes. So this line here, asterisk, dash, 10, asterisk, asterisk, asterisk. That bit is every 10 minutes. And then it's the rest of the line is taking it to the location and running the script. So I came up with this idea of a housing for the receipt printer. Even though I didn't get the receipt printer to work, I wanted to imagine what it would look like in this space. So I looked at Kim Kardashian's makeup line and took some inspiration from that. And then if I got to this point, I would 3D print this, sand it down, and then use a limestone effect spray paint so that it would kind of look like stone. It would have that kind of effect she has on her, on the stuff on her website. So to analyse this project, even though I didn't get to the fabricated part, I used a range of components I hadn't tried before, including a thermal printer, Raspberry Pi, Python that I'd never used, and Cron job to varying degrees, but I think in more time I would have been able to execute my visualization. I think I just gave myself too much work to do, the time frame with my experience. But I learned a lot about the early days of Instagram and how important its buyout by Facebook was in terms of advertising and algorithms and looking after its users. I think it's also too important to comment on how big it got so fast, and the time that it was made was very important as well. I also learned a bit about its algorithms, that it's not just one algorithm and it's lots of different machines working all at once that sometimes get human checked as well, but because of Facebook, it's a lot of machine learning. I went down a big rabbit hole of Wikipedia links and Instagram Reels, but I think it had more of an effect on my personal relationship with the app, and I'm not sure it really came through the project too much in the fabricated idea. I think there's lots of elements of the project that work, but I don't think that was really, it doesn't scream Instagram to me, the final fabrication. I think there's a lot more to it that I could explore and develop within this project. But I think I did a lot of research and I just struggled with the actual execution and the coding part behind it.